Hey everybody, welcome back to the Soho Lux Realty YouTube channel. I'm Davis.
I'm Leif.
And collectively we own just about 100 rental units. Today we're going to be discussing renters, exactly who occupies our properties, how to identify good ones, red flags to look out for, and much more. So without further ado, to kick things off, I'll throw things over to Leif.
Yeah.
So you have a prospective renter tenant. Mm-hmm. What do you do to set clear expectations from day one in terms of like, hey, this is the profile that, you know, is needed to rent at our property?
So with every tenant we have, or long story short, we used to self-manage. So now we don't. We have a management company in place, but going back to when we used to manage the apartments ourselves, we would always send the rental requirements out to every single tenant. It would always be the same, X, Y, and Z. If you meet these requirements, go ahead and apply. And we typically like to, I know a lot of companies do that after the fact, or they don't even send it to the tenant, so they collect their $50 application fee or $100 application fee. In our case, we were so busy that we didn't want to deal with tire kickers, so we got them out the way. We only had applicants who actually met our rental requirements. Granted, we didn't know that until they submitted an application, but you would think someone would want to save $75 application fee before they do, which you'd be surprised. We've had so many tenants, even after we send them the rental requirements, show up with evictions in the past, still owing landlords money, which it still baffles me today why they think they could get away with it. But we always set a clear set of expectations of what we look for, and if you don't meet these requirements, that will be, a reason for denial.
Yeah, and just real quick, it's important to be ethical, right, and abide by fair housing. So going off of what Leif's saying, you have to hold that, your set of expectations, credit score, monthly income, etc. You have to, lay out those rules that apply to everyone. So you can't discriminate against somebody. Hey, it's black and white. Do you meet these requirements or do you not? We're going to be upfront, send them to you in advance before you pay any sort of application fee. Mm-hmm. And then, you're accepted or denied based on that. You have to come up with a set of rules, abide by those rules, black or white, whoever, the black and white rules apply. Either you qualify or you don't. So next thing on the list, is about renewals. Mm-hmm. So, Leif, and we can discuss this, but, you have people that their lease is coming to the end. You obviously want to retain them at the property. What's your thesis around designing renewal offers or how to time them, what to say to hopefully get the tenant to stay at the property and not move out?
That's a funny question because we actually talked with our banker, 2 weeks ago, exactly about that. Mm-hmm. And he was asked us how much we increase our rent every year, what percentage, and we pretty much told him, listen, if it's a good tenant and they pay on time, we'll increase it $15 to $25. Our intention is for them to stay there. I don't care, if they're under market and we know we could get them for another $100, but they haven't missed a payment they haven't missed a payment since the existence of them being there. We'll bump it up $15 max.
Yeah.
Because that turnover of them leaving, us spending money to repaint the entire apartment, us spending money to fix up things here and there, at the end of the day, that cost adds up, and it's more beneficial to keep heads in beds than turn apartments every 6 months, every 3 months, and keep having a fill-in tenants.
100%. I think a couple things. The beauty of having scale in multifamily, owning, like us, nearly 100 units, or maybe you own 1,000 units, whatever, is the fact that you have an increased number of units. You don't have 1, 2, 3. The point I'm trying to make is to Leif's point, your priority is, keeping those heads in those beds, keeping the units occupied. Mm-hmm. Because, if someone happens to move out and you have to put $2,500 or $5,000 into the unit to get it back to where it needs to be, replacing flooring, repainting, all this different stuff, Yeah, that costs you money, and not to mention the rent you're missing out on the months that the unit isn't occupied. So, going back to the thesis of, hey, buy more units as opposed to less. You have a house or a duplex, someone moves out, all of a sudden 50% of your cash flow is gone right away.
Yeah.
Top line income. So yeah, I mean, look, it's important to Late's point about, hey, we might do a small bump just to pace inflation, or we might not bump their rent at all to keep them, is a good point. I think it also depends on where you are in the cycle, right?
Yep.
So if you're in a flat or even downtrending rent environment, you're gonna have to take an extra step to keep that tenant in the property, because there aren't as many options out there. Rents just aren't going up, etc. On the other hand, if there happens to be another COVID boom and things are appreciating 30% over the span of 18 months, maybe you can get away with $100 bumps a year for that time frame. So it's important to understand, just like everything in life, kind of where you are in that cycle, and that applies to renewals 100%.
And if you're a tenant living in an apartment complex and you get a renewal letter, don't think that's the end all be all. You could negotiate that rate. You could ask for some incentives. You could ask for a shorter lease term, or even less monthly rent payment. So don't be afraid once that rent renewal comes in and you think you're stuck with that. Give your property manager a call, or whoever's in charge of where you live, and try to work them down if you can. I mean, hey, when I lived in an apartment, I did that every single year. They would send it to me. Oh, I can't pay that. Oh, I can't pay that. And I'd get it down $100 almost every single time. So what you get, I know that's bad coming from us. And hopefully our tenants aren't watching.
Yeah, just don't negotiate with us. Yeah. That's the one exception.
Don't be afraid to negotiate with your property manager. That rent renewal is not, in stone. So
that's a great point. So next, one of your favorite topics, Lath, is maintenance requests.
Oh.
How to handle those with management. What's the best process associated there? And Lord knows you own apartments. What do they say? Tenants, termites, toilets.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have to deal with all those things. So how discuss maintenance requests. What do you think is the best way to handle those as they roll in to keep your money in your pocket?
I mean, I would like to say I would have a good idea, but I mean, still at this point, I'm still trying to figure out. I mean, you saw me yesterday.
Yeah.
I had a water line break, and none of our plumbers answered. And what did I do? I left at 11:30 during the day.
Yeah.
With a blower fan to dry out the damn flooring, because no plumber answered. And I went out there, shut off the water, and then the plumber eventually went out there to fix that line, but. I'd like to say I have a good idea, but it's all about having a good team and having multiple guys for, the same trades. And I would like to think that we have that, but I mean, you never know. Sometimes people don't answer, people don't get back to you, and you got to take matters in your own hands. And do I like doing that? Not really. But I'm fine with doing that rather than having a whole complex flood.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do. And I know for some property owners, that's one of the biggest deterrents of getting into this business. Granted, we've been doing this for over 7 years now, and we built a pretty large enough team of techs that we can rely on. And this is kind of like a one-off. I think probably only done that once this whole entire year, where I had to go out to a property myself and take care of an emergency. But it's all about surrounding yourself with the right team, so whatever happens, someone's going to be out there to take care of it. And shit happens in this business. You can't foresee everything. So having the right people and having them be able to answer the damn phones is one of the most important things in this business.
Yeah, and it goes back to a topic we discussed previously, which is, buy small, buy big. The thing you have to understand if you're going to be a real estate investor is real estate's a full-time job, any way you skin the cat. So, if you're thinking, I'm not going to sell my house, I'm going to rent it out, that's great. If you can pull it off, do it. Mm-hmm. But understand that these maintenance requests aren't going to stop, and you're going to be the one that's going to have to handle the problems because you're not going to be able to afford management because you don't have enough scale. So like Lath mentioned, he had a water line break and he had to go out there. It's an emergency. The plumber that we work with didn't answer his phone that day. But that could be you too. So beware of that. Like, again, we're full-time in real estate. We do it every single day. We have the time. If you're working a 9-to-5 corporate job, you're not going to be able to leave your desk necessarily to go, fix a water line. So keep that in mind. But yeah, definitely something you have to stay on top of in this business. Can make or break you. And not always the most fun thing to do, but necessary to do.
Oh yeah.
And I guess last but not least on the list, probably our least favorite topic is when to unfortunately evict a tenant that is a problem tenant. How do you handle that? What's the process look like?
Yeah.
The timeline, right? I think that's important to discuss. Like, how many days after they haven't paid? Can you do it? What's the process look like?
That's a great question. And this is a very sensitive topic. I know anytime we talk about this, we always get a lot of pushback from just random people. Some of the stuff people say is just absurd.
I'll just add this in. Coming from landlords, no one wants to evict tenants.
Exactly.
It's the last thing we want to do. Is sometimes your hand is forced, but like I said, no one wants to deal with that. It causes problems on both ends. So I'll just throw that out there on the record.
So my process is pretty simple. Rent's obviously due on the 5th. If you don't pay on the 5th, then on the 7th, we send a 10-day pay or quit. That means they have 10 more days from the 7th. So on the 17th, they have 10 more days to pay their rent. If something happens, and emergencies always happen. You could wake up one day in the hospital, or you get in an accident. But as long as the tenant communicates with us and tells us, hey, this is what happened. I'm going to try my best to have this payment done on this date. If not this date, hey, sorry I missed that date. I had this brought up. I'm going to have to push it back to the 29th or the 30th. As long as they're openly telling us and openly updating us on when they're going to make their payment and what's going on, we're always willing to work with them. I mean, we have some tenants that are actually, one tenant we had that we discussed last week was 2 months behind on rent. And thankfully she, told us, hey, I'm going to have the money paid by the 5th. The 2 months of rent paid by the 5th, even though she still owed a previous month's balance. And, granted, we didn't evict her because she was always open with us and telling us and keeping us up to date when she was going to make the payment. And lo and behold, she actually made the payment for 2 months, which I was kind of shocked because in the class of apartments we have, it's not usually people have 2 months worth of rent that they could make make a payment on. But as long as you're open and tell us and keep us updated, we will work with you. But the second you go silent, the second we don't hear anything, that's when I have no sympathy. After the first month, if we don't get that first month's rent after the end of the month, that's when the court papers are being filed.
Yeah.
It's as simple as, hey, for example, we had a lady last month who had to have emergency surgery. And even at the hospital, she said, hey, I'm not going to have the rent paid this month. I'm going to be out of work for the next 3 weeks. I get back to work December 1st. I get paid X amount that week. I'll have this portion of money paid towards you. And we haven't filed on her. It's as simple as just letting us know. But the second you go dark and you don't say anything, and we call you, we text you, we send you notices, that's when it's just all bets are off.
Yes,
and I still know people in the YouTube comments are going to say, "Oh, you guys are still assholes for doing it." Listen, at the end of the day, we still have to make the mortgage payment every single month. And you know what happens if we don't make the mortgage payment? They come knocking on our door.
Bad news bears. So yeah, the takeaway is, listen, whether it's a tenant-landlord relationship, personal relationship, whatever, communication's huge. Never cease to engage in that. It just helps things all around. So with that being said, I think we'll wrap this one up. If you have any questions, as always, post them below in comments, like the video, share it with someone who might use this information well, and we'll catch you in the next one.